Okay, so it's been some time since I've been on the DisKAvery project. Lots of things get in the way of certain projects. Engines that are hydraulic on water when you're off-roading them in P38 Range Rovers, that's got in the way of this project. Learning a CNC machine and building a generator to power the CNC machine, and a few life things outside of work as well. But I feel I'm now about to hit the home straight on this. Need to do the paperwork to register it, and lots of small little jobs to actually finish it off. Obviously it moves under its own power, it stops on its brakes. There's lots of just little jobs to get it done. So I think it's time to get it into the workshop and have a little recap of what I've done so far and make a list of what's to do. So, a bit of a recap here then. We've got a 1994 DisKAvery 1 chassis, 2002 Ford KA body shell obviously. If you missed that, you obviously haven't woken up yet. 4.6 P38 GEMS Range Rover engine, running standalone through LT77 gearbox from the DisKAvery 1. We're not on any axle mods in terms of locking diffs or anything at the moment. It's more a case of let's get it on the road. It's on a 2-inch lift with 2-inch springs, so effectively a 4-inch lift, which might have to actually tone down the springs a bit obviously, because there's not as much weight in the body now, but we won't know that until we start actually flexing it off-road. However, just drawn up a list of jobs which I'm sure I'll be adding to. So it looks something like this. I've got a clutch pipe to remake because all I had at the time was 3/16 and it should have been in quarter, I think, so I've got quarter pipe for that now. This header tank I need to replace because it had an incident with a soldering iron. So I've got a new one of those to fit. Need to pop an air filter on here, one of our power shrouds because of the LPG system, which I'll be mounting off the top of the plenum to support it. ECU, that needs mounting and putting in a watertight box and deflector, because at the moment the water runs down the screen, through the grill, onto where the ECU would be, although I've been leaving it out. That then leads me into this area down here. There is a hole in the bulkhead here for coolant pipes, or heater pipes, to go through to the heater matrix. So I need to build a heater matrix and blower box, because the original Ford KO one won't fit due to the bulkhead being a lot further back. Cooling fan for the rad, that is on and fitted, just needs wiring in. Where are we up to? Need a temperature gauge and an RPM gauge because the KA doesn't have either of them. I definitely want a temp gauge for obvious reasons off-roading, and just nice to have an RPM gauge. That then leads into the LPG wiring. It does run up on LPG at the moment, but I've just kind of rigged a wire to the positive solenoids when I turn the ignition on, just to go live for moving it around. I need to actually wire up the lambda loop system, which also needs an RPM feed, which I'll be pulling off of I think it's a grey slate wire on the red terminal from memory, but yes, for that. So the LPG tank then needs properly mounting, because it's just rested on its mounts at the moment. I need to mount the seats properly because I had to cut some of the feet off the seats so I could actually get the transmission tunnel built. This mount down here isn't actually bolted to anything, and on the passenger seat I had to cut it off, so that needs making. Where are we up to? LPG filler needs actual mounting at the moment. It's cable tied to the rear wiper, which is not code of practice. So I've done some very bad bodywork here. I need to finish off where the original petrol filler was. I'm going to mount the LPG filler there. We'll eventually make a small petrol tank for this, but for now it will be 100% LPG. Need to attach the wings, as you can see down there. That one is, let's zoom on this camera there, not on correctly, so I need to get the fixings from them from Ford. which I will be doing after paint. So yeah, coming up with a paint scheme for this. Got a few different ideas. Noddy car has been suggested multiple times, but that will not be happening. I quite like RPI livery, the colours we have, sort of the dark black charcoaly colour with red and grey, so that will probably get incorporated in there. Brake pipe clips, all the brake pipes are made up, but they're not actually clipped to the car at any point. They're just bolted into the master and bolted into the calipers. Washer bottle cap, the KA never had one. And it needs one for MOT, so need to source one of those. If anyone's watching and has one, let me know. LPG lambda sensor. When I built the exhaust system, I didn't put a lambda boss in for the LPG lambda, so that needs to be modded into the exhaust system. Battery cover. The battery at the moment resides under the rear seat, down here. So obviously being inside the car, need to make sure that's well covered off, so if in the event of a rollover, no battery acid can leak out. And what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to double up on safety and actually order a gel battery for it, so we should be, you know, just double belts and braces there, make a cover so it's safe, and also run a gel battery. I think it's a very wise decision on that one. There's nowhere else really to put the battery because the boot is full of LPG tank. Reverse switch needs to be wired in, brake switch needs to be wired in, handbrake as well, switch for the dashboard warning light, and at which point I'll wire in the fluid level. Switch speedo cable, I need to make up and also have the speedo head calibrated. And then, just why not, let's wire in the OBD2 port. Obviously once all that's done, I'll probably have added a bit more to the list, and I'll be doing a full nut and bolt check. Right, that's 3 things ticked off the list. The air filter's now mounted, it's nice and sturdy. Just undid this joint here and gave a bit of a kick on the pipes there to bring the air filter forwards in the engine bay to avoid all this plastic. There's not a lot of room in an engine bay when you fit a 4.6 into a KA. Originally the ECU was, I was going to mount it in this corner down here, then obviously used a P38 header tank and lost a lot of room from that. So the second thought was to bring the ECU up here, actually extended the wiring loom, because on a P38 Range Rover the wiring loom comes over here to this area for the ECU, hence our original plan of mounting it there. So extended the loom so it reached up here. I've now actually mounted it though in the passenger footwell. You can't really see it, but it's tucked up in a black box there. So yeah, the loom was almost long enough to do it, but I actually managed to get quite a bit of extra length by moving the loom. So originally the loom, Jem's loom, comes across here behind this alternator belt, comes out here, and then runs off to the multi-connector, which I've hacked off and put my own on, and then to the ECU over there. So I've actually brought the loom back, brought it up through here, and then yeah, so this loom goes off to the ECU, and then this loom comes off to the body connector, which originally would have been this pink plug. I'm using this multi-connector I've got here, because that would go straight into a fuse box on a P38, so I don't have the other side of that plug. So that's that. The fan's now wired up as well. There's a fuse there, power's just taken off the back of the alternator because it's really short run. So I'm now going to run the engine up to temperature and set that. Right, well, yeah, at the end of that short little section of video, as I said, I was then about to run the engine up to temperature and set the thermostatic switch for the electric fan. That was back in October. This is now January 2019, so again a little bit more time has passed. Had a few more jobs to do on the P38 Range Rover. Obviously I do off-road it, so preventative maintenance and repair maintenance is a requirement on that. However, things didn't quite go to plan when I was setting the temperature on this on that day. First time the engine had properly been run up to temperature for a long time. I've had coolant in it and run it up to temp, but then shut it down because there's been no fan on the radiator, so that was the longest duration the engine had run for. And yeah, people often wonder why we recommend doing everything belt and braces. Well, this is why. Because I didn't follow those rules. I was, I just dropped that bit. Anyway, we only need to show half of it. Yeah, I used a pair of second-hand 10-bolt cylinder heads. They weren't fully reconditioned. I checked the valves weren't leaking, and ported the heads. So then this happened. A broken valve spring. The engine was sat there ticking over. Thankfully it was at tick over, so no damage was done. Obviously I dropped a cylinder, started running rough and having a ticking noise. So shut the engine down, stripped it down and found this little, well, yeah, half a spring. The other half I just dropped down there somewhere. I'll find that in a minute. So obviously thought, okay, well, no biggie, just pop the heads off and we'll put some brand new springs on. That's fine until you go and put a Ford KA body shell around an engine. Could get to every head bolt. The exhaust manifolds were a little bit tricky to remove with the body on, but thankfully I did have the foresight of leaving as much room as possible around them. But the rear head bolt on this cylinder head was tricky to get to. Got there in the end, but had to fight for it. So those eagle-eyed amongst you will notice that the engine's now looking a little bit tidier, because obviously had the covers off, so I had a chance to repaint them. So it's been a little while since they were first painted, and we've actually changed the paint we use for that now as well, to give it a little bit more shine. The rocker cover, the plenum chamber actually just teak it up quite nicely, but yeah, the rocker covers needed a really good paint. So we struck a few things off the list. I think I'll probably just, I'm doing some more today. I'm not sure what we'll do today. Possibly look at the temperature gauge and RPM gauge and LPG wiring, do some electrics today. Maybe change the header tank over for the brakes as well. Had a little bit of a rethink on the battery, foot battery cover / gel battery here. I'm thinking actually maybe I will remove the battery from where it is at the moment and actually mount it under the seats but outside the car, so re-weld in the bit I cut out under the rear seat and actually have the battery mounted underneath the car outside. I can put a charge point / jump point for the times when it's needed, and I think that'll just be a little bit safer than having it potentially inside on a rollover. So yeah, also today I've got new tyres and wheels turning up for the Range Rover, I think, so I need a little bit of time to pop them on and check I've got no scrubbing, because I've gone bigger on them. But that should be today done and dusted. We'll see how much we get through wiring on this. Well, that's the end of today on the KA for me. I'm now going to fit my new wheels and tyres on my Range Rover. Got the new header tank on, obviously that didn't take too long. And then did some fabrication and got the two front inner seat mounts done. So the inner fronts had to be removed because the transmission tunnel is obviously now a lot wider. So just had to fabricate some new box section for those to mount to. So another two things off the list. Yeah, I think I've got a weekend away next weekend and then off-roading the weekend after, so probably February before I get back on the KA again, unfortunately, unless I do a couple of late evenings. Although I do also want to build a snorkel on the P38, which will probably take a few evenings, so that will be them gone. I'll obviously keep you updated.